Good afternoon to one and all present here for Scope's webinar series, which is specially designed for teachers who are nowadays teaching their students virtually. In this context, I am grateful to welcome Dr. Paresh Joshi sir, who is a professor of Department of English. Namaste sir.
Good evening.
From Veer, Narmad, South Gujarat University. Today, Professor Joshi's topic is online teaching, the new normal. In this context, the present talk will deliberate on the definition of online teaching, choice of the platform, and various types of methods. In a nutshell, if I say, the talk will discuss how online teaching can be made interesting, isn't it, sir?
Yeah.
Yes. Now over to you, sir.
Uh, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is really an opportunity to interact with colleagues. This is the time when you are more onto social distancing mode, and then that social distancing at times can mean isolation, can mean a loneliness. These are some opportunities where, thanks to technology, that we are in a position to, have an interaction on relevant areas. I would express my sincere gratitude to Scope for organizing a wonderful program like this. Uh, I also am grateful for the fact that I've got an opportunity to interact with many. I'm given to understand that many of you are listening to me, and I'm really happy that for some time I would share my humble insights. Uh, each one of us today are teaching online, and each one of us have our own autobiographies to write. My autobiography of online teaching. There would be a whole new chapter that would be featuring, if at all you take to writing autobiographies. Uh, well, then, let's formally enter into this discussion. I would love to have responses. Maybe we'll have a discussion at the end. Uh, I would, in my own humble capacity, as I said, share some of my own insights that I have experienced while uh, teaching myself, while reading the research on online teaching. I would, with the permission of the organizers, share my presentation formally and start the discussion. So, is my presentation visible?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, I think, as all of you know, the topic for the discussion today is online teaching, the new normal. Uh, when we say online teaching, the new normal, uh, it is no longer a new normal, but it has become a normal. Incidentally, when I was doing this interaction with a group of people uh, a month and a half back, it was probably new normal. But if we redefine the title, it is online teaching, the normal. It has already become a normal now. Each one of us are on our computer screens. Each one of us are on our phone screens. We're doing everything to ensure that we reach our students come what may. Uh, One of the things that I would love to share with all of you, I don't know, somehow my PowerPoint is not moving. All right. Thankfully, it has moved. Technology has its own, do's and don'ts. It has its own way of functioning at times. It won't cooperate. But even when it doesn't cooperate, we'll have to be resilient, and we'll have to try delivering what we're good at as teachers. Now is the time when from a real-time collaboration, we are pushed into digital collaboration. When I say real-time collaboration, you know, as human beings, the very fabric of our civilization has been collaborating, connecting. We celebrate, we have festivals, we come together. It is that physical presence, it is the physicality of being together that has been the hallmark of the, the civilizational development, if I put it that way. And that physical connection, that physical collaboration somehow is under attack. And we know the enemy, COVID-19. It has really pushed us apart. This social distancing is a buzzword, but a very, very painful word, if I put it that way, because we are not habitual to socially distancing. We are, contrary to what is the prevalent norm of social distancing, we are more habitual to socially connecting, socially synthesizing, socially getting together. Uh, it's like there are platforms now, one that we're already using, Microsoft Teams. We need to thank the people who created these platforms where hundreds of people can indulge in a real-time conversation. Uh, why I'm trying to draw your attention to COVID has destroyed our physical collaboration. Because now we are relying more and more on digital collaboration. This is an example, a perfect example of this digital collaboration. We're digitally connected and, troubleshooting all issues we're trying to interact right now. I'm reminded of Yuval Noah Harari, my personal favorite. I recommend each one of you to read A Brief History of Mankind, Sapien, A Brief History of Mankind. All three titles by him are amazing. Homo Deus and 21 Lessons from the 21st Century. Now, these books, what are the books? The first book, Sapiens, A Brief History of Mankind, very interestingly brings out that, these sapiens became the rulers of the planet Earth by their very ability to collaborate. Harari attributes, our rising on the top of the food chain, our becoming the rulers of the planet Earth. He dedicates this to two very unique attributes that we have as sapiens, as human beings. One of the first things that he talks about is our ability to collaborate in large numbers. On this planet now, we are in billions, and we still collaborate. Look at this. This interaction is possible because of a lot of physical and digital collaboration. So, that is missing today. And therefore we are pushed to rely more and more on WebEx, Zoom, GeoMeet, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. Everything has become online. It's not just education and it's not just teaching. It seems the entire offline provision in the world is off and we are online. Right from March, if you have seen judiciary, for example, we have now judiciary parallelly functioning online. And not just in India, everywhere else. Film industry, we had the theaters are now locked down. They have become Gothic buildings, I believe, where nobody visits. There's just hollowness of that huge entertaining sphere. We had Gulabo Sitabo, for example, released online. We had Sadak, released online. Teaching, education is online. Each one of us are aware of that. I don't need to even make a single point there. Politics, look at this. The entire country is governed, and the meetings that take place for taking key policy decisions is happening online. Well, recently we had the provision of having some inevitable meetings, the parliament has started functioning. But more or less, all the meetings, for example, CM or PM will take the briefing of the all CM. We've seen it on the news channels, the way entire country is governed online. I mean, it's the season of IPL, sports, for example. Not that it is played online, it is happening on an arena. But if you have carefully seen, there are screens which show the video of the fans, the audience, the spectacle. Uh, so sports is also relying more on online because you can't go and experience that spectacle. Business has gone online. That means we live in a world where everything is online. And as all of us understand, uh, offline is not going to be available anytime soon. We pray Almighty that we quickly find a vaccine or a cure so that things come back to normal and we start functioning the way we were functioning, the way we have known our life has been offline for a long time. I think this is an inspirational story which each one of us would have read right in the beginning of the first uh, phase of the lockdown. This is a story of a history teacher, Subrata Pati, from West Bengal. And this picture keeps inspiring me every time I see this picture. You have a teacher, a dedicated teacher, who creates a nest on a tree to ensure that he is in a position to teach his students. Rising above these technological issues, which may be there, but then if you are resolved, if you are committed, this is probably the best example of what a committed teacher can be. Who he would not hesitate creating a platform on a tree, climb and see that there is proper connection and he is in touch with his students. I think they should inspire all of us. And that's why I have put this very powerful, touching story of Subrata Pati. And this reminds me of Albert Camus. Again, read with me. What's true of all the evils in the world is true of plague as well. It helps man to rise above themselves. This was 1942. Now, replace plague with COVID-19. What's true of all the evils in the world is true of COVID-19 as well. It helps man to rise above themselves. So I invoke your spirits to rise. It is said adversity makes man. And like Nietzsche said, that which does not kill you makes you stronger. So this is an opportunity for all of us to rise above ourselves, rise above everything that is limiting, everything that is crippling us, everything that is pushing us back into the four walls in the name of social distancing and everything. And literature and pandemics have shared a long relationship. There has been the portrayal of pandemic, how pandemic could threaten the human existence, and how then these humans, this man has risen above, resilient, fighting back. Right from 8th century, Homer's Iliad, there's a portrayal of, flag hitting the shores of Troy when Agamemnon was on attack to Troy. We had Boccaccio's Decameron, Mary Shelley's Last Man Standing, and then Albert Camus' The Plague. These are the tales of the resilience of mankind and their ability to rise above circumstances. Uh, how is it relevant to online teaching? Some of you would feel that I've started discussing pandemic literature. It is very relevant because, when we say online teaching, we are on a compromised platform. Each one of us would love the real class where we have real students, those curious eyes staring into our eyes, some of these smiles, some of those boring, angry, frowning faces. And we've been habitual to that class. But that no longer is available. But does this mean non-availability of a real teaching experience is going to cripple us and stop us? No. I think this is an opportunity for all of us to rise above, and deliver at any cost. Uh, there's now emergence of a new pedagogy. We call it pandemic pedagogy. So when we say pandemic pedagogy, uh, in few words, it can be informally said as teach from home, students at home. So now, work from home, teach at students who are at home has become an absolute norm. And that has become, a pedagogical normal. So this pandemic pedagogy is revolving around online teaching. We had to suddenly update ourselves, started knowing, I'm sure, like many of us, for example, if you ask me, I had made some random Skype calls before I started formally using, video interactivity platforms for teaching. And many of you would agree with me that before COVID-19, before these lockdowns, uh, none of us were habitual to this online teaching. And suddenly, we had to pull our socks, tighten our belt, get hold of those devices lying somewhere which were not probably used as much as we're using right now. And we sort of started learning on our own. It was a self-orientation program. Organizations like Scope is now orienting us, but then the first phase of online teaching, interestingly, was so sudden, uh, uh, so unexpected that we really did not have time to formally think of the pedagogical issues, and we started teaching. But then, thank God, we have interactions like this. Uh, this COVID has been a massive blow to education, no doubt about that. You know, the entire uh, formal education as it existed before COVID is in complete disruption. Um, and uh, as I had quoted Harari, although we were busy uh, rebuilding our education, the new education policy has been announced, and the government is now thinking of revamping the entire education. That's a good news for the nation, and I'm sure many of you would have known the new education policy, which has a lot of wonderful promises. Uh, COVID-19 and education. Uh, you have all known this, but since we're discussing online education, let's have a look at these interesting facts. For example, in 186 countries, more than 103 billion children, as per UNICEF, are forced to learn online. The distinctive rise of e-learning on digital platforms like Baidu and Unacademy have seen unprecedented rise in the number of learners participating in those learning portals. If you look at it from a business point of view, these companies' shares have gone 200, 300, 400% higher in the market. They're minting money. That is the kind of change. This statistics is put to make you realize how massive is this change. You're trying to visualize the size, the scale, in which things have changed. Interestingly, research suggests that online learning has been shown to increase retention of information. We would discuss that in detail, but online learning is more comfortable for learners. That is a perception. There are issues. pedagogical, technological, but then it gives learners more uh, a sort of an autonomy to receive content, pause, forward, replay, which were the provisions probably not available in an online classes. That helps the retention go. Uh, this is a very symbolic kind of a picture here, from slate to cell phone, a tectonic shift away from the classroom. I told you about Baju's in 200% increase. This Alibaba cloud, deployed more than a lakh new cloud service in just 2 hours last month, setting a new record for rapid capacity expansion. And look at the number of servers, and this is what is happening. Each one of these uh, online platforms are now grappling with trying to expand their infrastructure. It is the capacity building which is challenging, because more and more people are participating in it. A lot of times, for example, this is being live streamed on FB. FB needs a specific infrastructure to facilitate this. And who knows, at the moment, you will have few thousand, few hundred, maybe few lakh lectures or sessions which are being streamed online. Imagine the bandwidth, imagine the internet connectivity, imagine the intervention of technology, and imagine the number of participants. So this is a tectonic shift, and it has taken everyone by surprise. And there are massive movements in this sphere. We are looking at it from an educational perspective. Now, infographics, remote learning, and e-learning. I'm quickly giving you a short history of what has gone past. When we say e-learning and say remote learning, distance learning, are the features of our education for a long time. If we see, the first course uh, given by using the correspondence was 1840. Isaac Pitman taught his pupil shorthand via correspondence. There's an interesting fact. In 1924, the first testing machine was invented. Then in 54, B.F. Skinner, a Harvard professor, invented teaching machine, programmed instruction to their students. So this is how gradually from remote learning, parallelly you saying that machines, you have a testing machine, you have a teaching machine. So technology's intervention into education is not something very, very new. It has been happening in its gradual pace. 1960s, after the computers come, the entire equation changes. You have first computer-based training program, Plato programmed logic, automated teaching operations. The term e-learning has only been in existence from 1999. So, this is probably a brief historical glance at what has gone past as far as remote and e-learning is concerned, because in one way this is even when we say online teaching, it is distance learning. I would take a small pause and ask the organizers, is audio video quality all right? Everything is going good? I need this feedback.
Yes, sir.
All right, all right. So
yes, sir.
I'm so happy that everything is going good.
Yes, sir, going good.
God is with us. As I was telling the organizers, it is raining heavily here in Surat, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we have our connectivity till we end this session. So, I want each one of you who are listening to me pay attention to what happened. After delivering this session for this long, there came an urge within a teacher to get a feedback. I had no idea as to whether what I'm speaking is reaching all of you properly. So I had to pause and ask that, well, can you all hear me? Is my video audio quality all right? So, that feedback is no longer available to us when we're teaching online. And when I'm discussing, or when I'm going to discuss pedagogical issues, I'll ask for some of the interactions which would take place later, but I'm going to deliberate upon it. One of the major drawback when it comes to online teaching is that the feedback is not available. You are looking at this small little camera which provides you a window to thousands of screens, thousands of households spread across I don't know how many thousand square kilometers. So we would discuss that as we move on. You would have known this, but then I wish that I draw your attention that online teaching has two models very popularly known as synchronous, the real-time live discourse, working together at the same time, and in the online learning world, chat rooms and online lectures, conferences, real-time discourse. Asynchronous is pre-recorded, pre-prepared content, relay of information with a time lag. Students have plenty of time to formulate thoughts. Students are able to respond in detail to question on topic. Uh, Now, there has been a debate as to which one is better, synchronous or asynchronous. If you honestly ask me, there is no ready-made answer. Each one of them have their own relevance and their own importance. If you ask me, I would say it is the blend of two. If both of them are used in sync, it's like, for example, it would not be enough if I record this lecture and put it, and each one of you listen to it, at your own convenience, because there's more motivation and eagerness if something is happening live. For example, the fact that each one of you are listening to me carefully is that you are in the realization that this man is sitting in his chamber and he is talking to us right now, that synchronous nature of communication. But then if I then want to make it more productive and interactive, I would prepare some tests and mail it to you. You would respond to them. I would probably send some, Google forms, which would probably act as feedback. Maybe I prepare some MCQ tests and games, and I send them to you. Uh, so if I am in a position to make the synchronization of synchronous and asynchronous, I think I will be in a position to make online teaching more productive, uh, more user-friendly as it is. The e-teaching and e-learning, these are some of the relevant areas that we need to think of. Content and instructional method, developed on computer. When we're talking about e-teaching, we're primarily talking about digital content. As a matter of fact, I feel that we are the last generation who are still going to see books, pen, papers, uh, very soon. I think probably COVID could become a turning point, and which was already happening. From the written and printed world, we were already moving to digital world. Just try and think of this. When was the last time you had written a letter, handwritten letter, maybe, to a friend? Try and remember as teachers, when was the last time you sat a paper using pen and paper? No, most of us data process, most of us prepare PowerPoint presentation. I'm talking about times before COVID. So, we are now, pushed rather harder towards uh, that change in the medium. It's digital space now, digital content, and that's what e-teaching and e-learning presupposes use of e-learning tools in distance education. And if you sit down and research on tools available for online teaching, uh, they're endless. Every day few new tools are introduced, and by the time you realize, even keep the name in your memory, new tools are available. But then these are some of the nuances, when we talk of online teaching, use of e-learning tools in distance education is the area which needs a lot of deliberation and thinking. Computer-based learning, virtual classroom, audio video tapes, satellite broadcast, TV, CD-ROM. Now, this is the landscape of e-learning or online learning, if we put it that way. Online teaching and learning, use of internet, that is, something that keeps your online teaching alive. Imagine we did not have internet connectivity. For a while in the beginning of the session, I lost my internet connectivity, and I was really worried about the fact that, well, there's no internet connectivity. So, internet allows us to connect anytime, anywhere, depending on whether it is synchronous or asynchronous. Uh, Course content with student support. Now, this has become possible because technology allows you to have a lot of support activities, uh, which we will discuss when we are discussing pedagogical issues. But then you can prepare Google Forms, you can use Google Class. I think incidentally, my tomorrow's session is, leveraging networking tools for making our online classes interesting. So there we'll have more space to discuss how WhatsApp can be used, how Facebook can be used. But that support is available now. Course content with student support would mean that there are a lot of other support provisions, which are available in online teaching. Continual connectedness, convenience, and flexibility. Now, continual connectedness, convenience, and flexibility are probably the hallmarks of online teaching. It allows you to accommodate flexibility and convenience, and then you can remain connected uh, continuously. For example, a WhatsApp group of teachers and students would mean that they are in continuous interaction. The issues are discussed. Convenience would mean that a recorded lecture, I would listen to that lecture. For example, this lecture is being recorded right now. This becomes a resource. Someday, I will listen to it at my own convenience. And then flexibility. It allows you to be using synchronous, asynchronous modes of teaching. More importantly, this is a shift from teaching to learning. Online teaching appears more learner friendly. The interaction between the student and the content. Now, these are some of the paradigms in online teaching. There is interaction between student and teacher, and there is interaction between student and student. Now, this in a way also is something which would make our online classes more interesting. The students are allowed to interact with the content in the sense they have, recorded material available, they listen to it, replay it, forward rewind it. It also allows student-teacher interaction, and most importantly, it also allows student-student interaction in the online sphere, which makes our classes more interesting. Now, when you talk of online teaching, the issues are two-pronged. You can divide them into two larger groups: pedagogical issues and technological issues. And when we think of pedagogical issues, what we need to now rethink about, when we're talking about online education, is course objectives. each one of the boards and schools are now sitting to rework these course objectives, because the courses that we have right now are not designed for an online delivery. And therefore, when we say course objectives, for example, ICSE board is thinking of reducing the syllabus of 12th to almost half. And that is what policymakers are busy with right now, that maybe, the course objectives would need a redefinition, because then if online teaching continues for a long time, and I believe that at least for a year, till Diwali, we have at least seen, it's very difficult to see the future. But, for a long time, we may remain online, and that would mean redefining course objectives, uh, desired learning outcomes. So learning outcomes also need a complete redefinition. Now, we are not available to the students as much as we used to be available in a classroom situation. The interaction is not taking place. And that is where, the course objectives need redefinition. Instructional strategies needs a complete revamp. And who would know it more than anyone of, more than us as teachers, that now for each session you need a PowerPoint presentation. Instructional strategies will have to change. For example, this is a session possible hazard-free because it is more an interaction. But if I was a maths teacher, for example, I'll have to have a completely different instructional strategy. I probably needed a board here to work, or I would use, had it been Zoom, for example, I would have used the whiteboard provision. So instructional strategies would also require a lot of innovation. Knowing the learners. Now, gone are the days when you were aware of the difficulties learners were facing, even sometimes without their expressing them. You notice, the next point is feedback. You notice on the face of the learner that he's not getting what he's saying. His behavior used to give you a lot of clues on his ability to learn. And we have all known that there are various learning styles. You have auditory learners, visual learners, kinesthetic learners. Now, within an online space, that knowledge is no longer available. So what is the way out? We probably need to devise our instructional strategies in a way that it caters to all learning styles, the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. And I feel it's difficult, but then we'll have to sit down and innovate. Now, for example, how do you cater to a kinesthetic learner's learning needs in an ongoing class? So, this is a mature audience listening to me who doesn't require too much of a spoon feeding and support. You're all my learned colleagues. Some of you would be senior, some of you would be junior to me. But then, had it been a school class, there is a provision of devising activities. So that is something that needs to be contemplated and thought about. Now, this is a seminal issue in the online classroom when we say feedback. Now, I have taught communication, I have trained people in communication. As each one of us know, I mean, without the visual feedback in an interpersonal communicative scene, and teaching obviously is an interpersonal communicative scenario, where you have your listener giving you a non-verbal feedback continuously. If you ask me what is my problem right now, my problem is I can't see any one of you. So I'm delivering this session to a screen, to my own slides. Well, I have the knowledge that each one of you are listening to me, but the non-availability of the feedback, the eye contact, the expressions, is something that uh, really uh, is a major setback as far as online teaching is concerned, if you ask me as a teacher. And then non-availability of that. If you're using other platforms, you will probably have the feedback. Let's say Zoom gives you multiple tiles, but then is it enough? That's the question that we need to ask. And then the evaluation is one of the larger issue as to are our conventional modes of evaluation going to suffice when we're talking about online education? And therefore, even when we are within this pandemic situation, many universities, JEE took place, competitive exams are taking place in the physical form the way they used to take place, because there is limit to what can be done online as far as evaluation is concerned. There's a limit to what can be done online for every aspect of pedagogy as far as teaching is concerned. So these are some of the pedagogical issues. A sudden shift to the traditional class to a virtual class, came out as a challenge to all of us. Uh, we were taken aback. Um, we didn't have. I'm talking about when it came. Now we have the experience. We have peer with whom we go and share our issues and we get a resolution. But when it was new for everyone, that shift, you know, uh, made us grapple with the pedagogical nightmare as to what are we going to do. Absence of ideal teaching conditions. Each one of you will agree with me that if you are asked to make a choice between an online class to an actual class, you would always take you would always take the actual class. Uh, Learner-centric teaching for maintaining the interest. Now, one of the seminal questions when we are talking about an online class is to how to maintain the interest of the learners, how to keep them motivated, how to keep them engaged, how to keep them uh, receptive, how to keep them, productive, if you ask me. And, here, if I suggest something, as a teacher myself, as far as teaching and pedagogy is concerned, some of the basic principles have not changed. The teacher's delivery, online, offline, is always going to influence the retention, the attention, every aspect. So if you're good at delivery, it not only helps you to become a good teacher in a traditional real class, but that is also useful in an online class. Like, for example, using your body and not being so confined to a space, realizing the fact that it is an ongoing class. You know, so as I said, some of these common elements, teachers' delivery, teachers' preparedness, uh, introduction of humor, uh, the level of energy the teacher displays, the teacher's commitment. Now, some of these things are common as far as the pedagogical priorities in online teaching and offline teaching. So, well, there are various devices available, activities, designing assignments, uh, providing links of relevant videos available online. Maybe as teachers, we'll have to search these relevant links, which can broaden their knowledge on what you have discussed. And a WhatsApp group, we send it. They see and they give a feedback. So, interaction with the students and devising activities, which can be really helpful as far as we talked about catering to different learning styles, uh, interactive and collaborative learning. Uh, I mean, since this is live on uh, FB, you are not available to talk to me. Otherwise, even when I do sessions like this, I create a lot of provision for interaction. I ask questions, and the way you get response of your relevant questions in a traditional class, these responses are available even in an online class. Now, one of the major stumbling blocks is when you're sharing a PowerPoint, you don't have the visual feedbacks of the learners. But then I would once again ask Madam to tell me how is it going? Can you tell me, is it all going good?
Yes, sir. All well.
All right,
Even
fine. So I have got a feedback. I have created a small interaction.
yes, yes.
So that is the fabric, interactive and collaborative learning. Interactive and collaborative learning can also be possible. Tomorrow we'll discuss them in detail, but where group assignments are given to the learners using Google Class or using WhatsApp groups or all the networking tools available. So that becomes collaborative. They can be given, an assignment on creating uh, a document or a presentation on social distancing norms, or maybe uh, immunity boosting practices. And 5 people, you have, for example, uh, Google gives you Google documents, which can be wonderful examples of collaborative learning, where more than one people can build a document together, which is another very interesting thing. Provision for formative assessment, and uh, for making our classes more interesting, effective. I think summative assessments uh, probably go the way they are going right now. But formative assessment is where there's a lot of space. Quizzes. There is an interesting website if you wish to take, uh, quiz.com, for example, which allows you to prepare quiz on your own, which allows you to upload an already prepared quiz, and then, when you give them a particular password to your quiz, a code number to the quiz, the learners would play that, and it would create a real time competition where someone, if he or she is doing or attempting questions faster, they top. And it's a very dynamic space which learners and teachers, all of them are seeing together. So it becomes interactive, uh, and that's the part of formative assessment also. Adapting ever changing technological landscape. I think we'll have to keep innovating, keep updating ourselves every second, and that is something that is going to help us, uh, as far as technological area is concerned. This is an interesting statement by Mrinal Mohit, a name familiar to all of us. Uh, Over a period, we have observed that clever integration of games has demonstrated the higher engagement and increased motivation towards learning, especially among younger students, making them truly fall in love with learning. Uh, you know, Now this is coming from someone who has created a very successful online teaching venture. So let's read it together again. We have observed that clever integration of games has demonstrated higher engagement and increased motivation towards learning, especially among young students, making them truly fall in love with learning. I mean, we can say that, well, our learners are not young learners, because I believe the, all of you who are listening to me are college teachers. So, now, when we say games, uh, there are a lot of online resources which help you create interesting games. Quiz.com was one example. Google Docs can become, for example, I'm going to discuss it tomorrow, but I'm tempted. If I'm teaching, and some of you, majority of you are from ELT, English teaching background, most of you are into teaching of English. If I'm teaching English, I would ask my learners to prepare a video of their routine. And maybe there is a group in which they upload these videos as to what do they do, what is their regular schedule. So this also becomes a game and uh, you know an engaging kind of an exercise where students record their own a 2-minute speech, for example, routine, ask them to probably, share a news in their region. Now, we're using WhatsApp. We're asking them to upload their recorded speeches. A lot of reluctance can be seen in an online class, but here within their room they would record it and they would send it to us. Send it within a group, for example, if it is a WhatsApp group where everyone sees it. If it is a bad recorded video, students learn what not to do, and if it is a good, linguistically rich video, students learn the good aspects of the language. As teachers, our job is not only to teach but also to ensure that the learning takes place, and introduction of these small games and online assignments would make our classes more interesting as we go ahead. Now, online teaching has many contesting issues, and I've chosen few, to deliberate upon, and I'm sure we'll have 10 minutes time at the end to discuss this. But look at these contesting issues. On one side, online teaching is seen as an opportunity. On the other side, it is seen as something that probably would derail the entire teaching and learning process. Could the move to online learning be the catalyst to create a new, more effective method of educating students? Now, this is an opportunity. Go back to Albert Camus, who said, this is an opportunity for them to rise above. So, adversities have always been, the genesis of the new creations. So, on one side, it is seen as an opportunity to do something new, while some other feel worry that the hasty nature of the transition of online may have hindered this goal. So these are contesting issues. E-learning, part of the new normal after experiencing the benefits firsthand. So there are people who say that, well, it could be a forced choice, but quite a few very interesting things have happened in online learning. For example, if you think of this young generation, they are more participative when they are on gadget. A number of surveys state this. And then that flexibility, the additional, resources that can be offered to learning. It's something that is beneficial. On the other hand, it is also seen as unplanned move to online learning with no training, insufficient bandwidth, and a little preparation will result in a poor user experience, unconducive to. So, these are contesting issues, and there is no doubt about the fact that we did not have time to sit and plan, make proper policies as far as online teaching is concerned. There are endless technological issues, because every time I speak about online teaching, in the interaction at the end, There are voices which would say, sir, if there is a student who is living in a village who doesn't have a proper handset, he doesn't have or she doesn't have internet connectivity, how am I or how are we going to reach these students? Now, well, these are issues given, but don't underestimate those students who are living in villages. They're finding ways to do it. And government is trying its best to infuse funds and resources which would make things much better than what they appear right now. But if you ask me, this could be contesting areas as far as online teaching is concerned. But I would see more in this than the negative. And then, if we keep working on the positive, we will gradually bring those negatives also into positives. There's an interesting statement by Dr. Ajman, the professor at the University of Jordan. I was reading an article from World Economic Forum. I quote World Economic Forum quite often in this presentation. Dr. Ajman, the professor at University of Jordan, has been using LARP. This is one of the tools that he's using to teach his students. And I quote, he says, "It has changed the way of teaching. It enables me to reach out my students more effectively. And through chat groups, video meetings, voting, and also document sharing, especially during the pandemic, I believe traditional offline learning and e-learning can go hand in hand." Well, if you ask me, is online teaching a norm which we would follow forever? I don't think so. Moment we are available, uh, we are back to our normalcy. This online teaching would come as a supportive mechanism. It can never replace a real class experience. Now, you know, what is the future then? To me, the future is blended learning, where we use the benefits of both the actual class and, very interestingly, each one of us have, if you review your own skill set, each one of us have been forced to upgrade our IT skills. So each one of us are now more technologically sound than what we used to be about 4 or 5 months back. And then when things normalize, are we going to let that upgraded skill die because of non-use? I would say no. I continue to use the benefits of online platforms, synchronous, asynchronous, and then go to class and try to make it more effective. That probably would be the norm for the future. Challenges, yes, there are quite a few challenges. I have listed few. Developing country like India, which is approximately 15 lakhs schools and about 50,000 institutes of higher education, and taking this mammoth monolith structure onto online is going to be a challenge. But we are facing this challenge head on. I think majority of the schools and colleges, except some probably which are in very, very remote places, are functioning as per timetable. I mean, sitting at VNSG, for example, I took my class yesterday, and the classes are going on. They're online. Only handful of schools could function in India when it was just newly introduced in the first phase. Probably this is the second phase of online teaching. The first phase, when there was a complete lockdown, some schools could quickly adapt because of their technological infrastructure and tech-savvy staff. But now, as days are going by, more and more institutions and more teachers are participating in online learning. Internet access and access to the gadgets compared to other countries which are richer, more resourceful. But every aspect of technological access and gadgets, government has government of Gujarat and government of India, for example, has distributed Namo tab. So there has been um, you know a lot of support from the government side to see that this technological transition to online teaching takes place. Uh, Lack of preparedness of all the three major stakeholders. That means it suddenly came to us. Students, teachers, schools, none of them were ready for this change. But we somehow seem to be adapting now and be moving forward, be resilient. Um, there are pedagogical issues, we have discussed them. No feedback, no motivation makes our classes more difficult at times. Online teaching, a sudden change. Now, this is where I want to discuss our problems, the problems that teachers face. Uh, it can also be termed as a sudden change in the teacher's way of life. Sudden plunge in online mode created a lot of stress and trauma in teachers who were not tech savvy. I'm underlying those who were not tech savvy. They had to quickly start understanding how technology works, how computers can be integrated, how to log into Google Meet or Zoom or Microsoft Teams. But that suddenness created a lot of stress. No framework, no markers. When we began, for example, we didn't have sufficient policy framework in terms of what should be the duration of the classroom, how much of the syllabus should be. Now these guidelines have started coming. We have these uh, policy framework evolving. But when online teaching began, let's say in March, for example, and then students' behavior. Now, this would sound very funny, but a lot of us have now become very popular in memes. People like me, for example, um, who are easy target to memes. So your students are taking screenshots of your online classes, and then you are being circulated as memes in the WhatsApp groups. And now each one of us know that there are two parallel groups, a group where teacher is present and a group where only students are present. And both the groups have radically different content shared. So students' behavior, uh, there is a whole online class etiquette. I feel there should be a session on that. Students need to be instructed again and again that put your audio on mute. If the norm is not to keep the video on, even when the video is on, your outlook, your grooming, they become an issue. Students have innovated by putting their photographs at a distance at a camera. A lot of things are happening. And at times they are annoying, at times they're funny. Attendance, for example, becomes an issue. It's really difficult to monitor attendance. And then this is the larger issue, a very big issue, parental interference. Now, so far, a parent was not available in the classroom where teaching and learning was taking place. It was strictly between the teacher and the student. Now, what happens is if mommy is free, if this is happening more in schools than colleges, but then the mother would come and become a peeping tom and see what is going on, and then she will, if she feels that the teacher is, she has no idea about what the teacher is doing, and she would pick up a phone and call the principal that the teacher is not teaching. She is singing songs. She has no idea about probably the song is the part of an activity the teacher has designed. So, these the spy satellites are being informal here. But when the parents are continuously hovering over the student who is learning, and then they not only interfere in the teaching and learning process, but they also interfere in the school management. So this is one of the hilarious issues that needs to be resolved. And well, there also parents are becoming more aware that the learners should be left free to learn on their own. Uh, we have lack of infrastructure, for example. Schools needed to invest a lot. Suddenly, they needed to, schools and colleges, obviously. Initially, when there was lockdown, teachers were having difficult times taking online classes. And, this family members hovering is not just a reality in terms of only students. Even teachers, for example, will have their kids coming and disturbing their own online classes. Schools and colleges needed to improve their infrastructure drastically. Lack of training. This is the training that's going on right now. I mean, I will call it more an interaction and sharing of experiences. But now you have a lot of programs. For example, Guru Dakshta program, HRD colleges are organizing sessions where, invariably online teaching becomes one of the salient features. Teachers are under pressure, not pleasure. Please excuse the typo. Under pressure to do the best. Nobody knows their problems. So school principal wants the teacher to be more productive, wants students to participate. But there are issues which teacher is facing, and probably not that attention is given to that. Managements at times are very strict and say, no, this has to happen at any cost. So that has created a lot of stress. For example, you have lack of support at times from the school management or colleagues, and even parents and students. Now, what is the way forward? I think I'm reaching the end of my presentation. Another 5 minutes, and I think last 5 minutes will keep for questions and answers. What should we do now? I mean, we discussed an array of opportunities, an array of challenges. Then how do we see ourselves performing in these times? These are just humble suggestions. I'm nobody to tell you what you should do. You are all very smart people. But each one of us will have to be tech savvy. We can't run away from technology because it is integrating in our life so intensely that almost everything that we do has technological intervention. And if we keep running away from that, I don't know, it is going to help. So we will have to keep at least having the basic knowledge of the functionality of technology which can be used in our day-to-day life in teaching and learning. A teacher needs to keep the energy level high, should update, innovate, and should multitask. I know it's not easy taking an online session. There are obvious issues that we have discussed. But then, we'll have to keep innovating, we'll have to keep multitasking. We can't just get exhausted. And it is very exhausting. I know sometimes when we are recording a half an hour session, its editing and its retakes would lead you to toil for about 2.5 hours. So it's demanding. It's it was easy to walk into a class and teach something that you already know. Because mostly, we would use a monologue, teacher would be teaching. Uh, but here you need to be prepared, more prepared than probably a real class. But isn't that something that would update all of us? Isn't that something that would, help us in the long run? Because then, if you have each class and each class's PowerPoint ready, even in your real class, we will be able to use that when things normalize. Orientation of students is students need to be oriented as to how to behave in an online class, how uh, they should also be taught as there are various provisions within which various activities can be conducted. For example, Zoom allows a breakout session, allows you to prepare a cluster of students who can do activities. Student-teacher interaction has taken a great toll because in whatever limited extent it is happening, it is not sufficient. So maybe, teachers should find ways to interact with students to find out what are their problems, a sort of a feedback which would allow them to, find out solutions. Uh, Within that interaction, there are, uh, portals which allow you to use raise hand portals and all that. Even with Google Meet, for example, you have a lot of extensions available for attendance. If you want a better view of learners, even those grids extensions are available. The idea is that, we will have to keep updating ourselves, try and deliver the best of the content that is pre-prepared, uh, well prepared, fitting the framework of an online session, and keep interacting with students. It is the last slide, and then we will have the question and answer session. It is an opportunity in disguise for all of us. A multi-pronged strategy is necessary to manage the crisis and build a resilient Indian education system in the long run. Devise policy framework which is ongoing, revise objectives and learning outcomes. A lot of effort would be needed in capacity building, training and orientation for the teachers and students, and most importantly, parents. We would need new syllabuses, as I said, with new course objectives and learning outcomes. We may need to devise new uh, examination system. We'll have to empower teachers, institutions. And once things normalize, probably blended learning is the way forward. Thank you all very much for being patient listeners. This was a wonderful time being with you, colleagues, honestly. Thank you very much. If you have questions, I would try to respond in whatever little I know about online education.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable views, sir. As you said, adversity has taught us many things, right, sir? And as you said, researchers have shown that online learning has been shown increased retention of information, and it shows we have adapted the new way of learning, right, sir? Yeah. And sir has also shown that shift from traditional class to virtual class and its issues and solutions, and showing ways how to engage students interactively and how to motivate them, how a teacher can be interactive in class. So we have received abundant information from you, sir. Thank you very much for that. Some viewers have some questions, sir. I would like to share some. First question is, will this destruction provide opportunity for deconstruction?
Come again, come again.
Yeah, will this destruction provide opportunity for deconstruction? I think they are going for Derrida.
Deconstruction or reconstruction? Yeah.
Deconstruction. The
No,
Derrida's concept.
if I rephrase the question, it
Yeah.
should be, would this deconstruction allow reconstruction? Would probably be the sense.
Yes.
Because deconstruction, allowing deconstruction is both the negative. Uh, but if that was the question, obviously, as I said in the beginning, every time the human race has been challenged, is pushed against the wall, we have come up with something new. You know, an online teaching, for example, is the best example of what best can be done. This session is an example of what can be done. You know, so obviously it is an opportunity to, you know, reconstruct uh, the best of the education system, because this has allowed us to sit and contemplate on what can be done.
Yes. Second question is, sir, won't this trend remove teacher-student direct and live contact?
For some time,
Yeah.
yes, but not always.
Yes.
Fine. And I would request everyone to read Sherry Turkle. Her book is Together Alone. There is a TED video also. There she says that if you honestly see, you know, with your friends, you are more digitally connected even pre-COVID.
Yes.
You know, so our reliance on digital connectivity has been increasing anyway. And the nature of our life, the nature of our engagement is so changing that we were anyway relying less on physical connection. Post COVID, we are now completely relying on digital connection. But I think physical connection is the very essence of the human civilization. It would come back. 6 months later, I think each one of us probably 6 months later, I'm visualizing talking to you live somewhere in Ahmedabad or Gandhinagar. Uh, I think that is going to be possible. So it's not going to be a norm forever. Yes,
Yeah.
partially we are disconnected, and that disconnection is very painful. But then, you know, it's a forced choice now.
Yes. One thing, sir, they are asking, feedback is really a big issue in online teaching. Students rarely answer in online classes. So we wonder if it is there any technical issue or what. Even there is no eye contact. And when the teacher doesn't get feedback, half of the enthusiasm, energy is lost. So how to cope up with this feedback issue, sir?
Okay. I think I was experiencing every word you spoke right now, even in this session,
Yes.
because I'm not really sure how many of you are listening to me. I don't have any feedback available. But yet, you know, I will have to keep myself doubly energized if half of my energy is taken away because my feedback is not available. I'll have to very honestly try with commitment to deliver what I have decided to. So if there are, say, 50 participants and 30 only receive you well, then even then the job is done.
Yes.
Another interesting thing that I said in my session is that, you know, it would be a challenge to make your class more interesting.
Yes.
What I personally do is I am more energetic, more, uh, you know, aggressive in my speaking when I'm online than a normal class, because then there I have the visual feedback available. So if I try to give the best of my delivery, uh, some principles of teaching remain same. So if you can make a relevant content deliver with enthusiasm, deliver with commitment to change something in students, I'm sure they would listen. And one way to uh, keep them interacting is instigate them. You know, for example, at least twice I asked Madam, is everything all right? I could have increased its frequency. You know, if this was a live session, I would have asked you guys a lot of questions. So instigating them,
Yes.
staying committed is something that would generate more feedback and responses.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind information, and I think everybody is satisfied with their answers. And we'll meet you tomorrow, sir, at the same time tomorrow for new topic.
Yeah,
With new topic.
yeah.
Yeah. So thank
Yes.
you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for listening to me carefully. Bye, everyone. Stay healthy. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir. Namaste.